Okay, so the method of practice that we described this morning is based largely on the practice of Satipatthana that Buddha taught, especially in the Satipatthana Sutta. So as well as from Satipatthana Samyutta, okay, and various other sources in the suttas. Okay? Now, Satipatthana was taught by the Buddha as a way to develop vipassana insight. Okay? Insight that leads to liberation. This is its primary purpose. Okay? So if you look at the opening of the Satipatthana Sutta, which we also recite in the morning, Buddha says, spell out the purpose of the practice of Satipatthana. Ekaya noyam bhikkhave maggo sattana visuddhiya, and so on. Okay? So Buddha says this path, this path means this Satipatthana path. Okay? This path is the only way for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and sorrowful crying, for the disappearance of physical and mental suffering, for the attainment of the noble path, and for experiencing Nibbana. All these 7 purposes of practice of Satipatthana, basically means liberation from dukkha. Okay? So the purpose of Satipatthana is to bring about the experience of Nibbana, the cessation of suffering, freedom from suffering. And as we explained this morning, that this comes about by developing vipassana, insight into impermanent suffering and non-self. Okay? So the method of Satipatthana, if you follow it properly, okay, will lead to the development of this vipassana insight that leads to liberation. Now, so Satipatthana, what does it mean? Okay. So this word is, you can resolve it as Sati and Upatthana. Okay. So Sati Upatthana, we join together as Satipatthana. Okay. So Sati means mindfulness. Okay, we will explain, we will discuss more about Satipatthana later on. Now, Upatthana. So Upatthana means strongly established, or firmly established. Okay? Establishing firmly. Okay? So Upatthana, Thana literally means standing. Okay? So you stand in a place, okay? You are established there. Okay? So figuratively, Thana means establishing. Okay? Upa means strongly. So establishing strongly. Okay? So Satipatthana means establishing mindfulness strongly or firmly. Okay? So when we employ the method of Satipatthana to develop a mind Okay? If you develop it properly, if you follow the instruction properly, okay? So it will gradually leads to the development of this mindfulness that is firmly established. Okay? So firmly established means the mindfulness is developed to a point where it is occurring with unbroken continuity. Okay? That means moment to moment to moment is occurring. Okay? Occurring with strength, with momentum, with precision, with clarity. Okay? So that's what it means when mindfulness is well developed. Okay? Now, what is mindfulness? Okay? What is sati? So as a yogi, you are working with mindfulness. Okay? Mindfulness is like a tool. Okay? A tool that you use in order to note, okay? To meditate. Okay? So as a yogi, you must understand mindfulness properly. Okay? So, now in Pali, the word mindfulness is, as you all know, sati. Okay, and this word sati, its meaning is connected with remembering, recollecting, or bringing to mind. Okay, so and often this is connected with memory. Okay, that means memory means remembering, recollecting, or bringing to mind. Okay, something that has happened or an experience that you have experienced in the past. Okay, so and often in the sutta, this is how mindfulness is also explained. Okay? For example, when the Buddha explained what is satindriya, the controlling faculty of mindfulness. Okay? So in the Indriya Samyutta, so Buddha asks, and what bhikkhus is the controlling faculty of mindfulness? The answer, Buddha says, here, bhikkhus, a noble disciple is mindful, possessing supreme mindfulness and discernment, is one who remembers and recollects what was done and said long ago. Okay? So this is the controlling faculty of mindfulness. So here in this passage, mindfulness is described in a way where it's involved in remembering, recollecting, or bringing to mind an event, something that has happened in the past. Okay? Now, but the object of mindfulness is not necessarily only objects of the past. Okay? It can also be object of the present. Okay? Object that's arising this very moment. Okay? So that means bringing to mind the object in the present moment. Okay? So, and this is the case of when we employ mindfulness in the practice of Satipatthana Vipassana. Okay? So in this practice, mindfulness is not employed to remembering, or recollecting, or bringing to mind something that you remembered from the past. Okay? Rather, mindfulness is employed to recollecting, you're bringing to mind clearly the sense experience that is arising in the present moment. Okay? So, it can be any one of the 6 sense experience. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and all the mental activities. Okay? Any 6 sense experience that is arising this moment, okay, that is prominent in this moment, okay, so we can bring it into the mind. Okay, so with mindfulness. Okay, so if let's say in the present moment, rising occur, okay. So rising, the experience of rising is a body door experience. Okay? You experience it through your body door. Okay? So as soon as rising occurs, immediately you make effort, bring that rising into your mind. Okay? And hold it in your mind. From beginning to the end of the rising. And you keep holding that rising until it disappears. You bring it into the mind and you hold it there. Hold it continuously from beginning until the end when it disappears. Okay? And similarly, the next, after rising and then falling occur. As soon as falling occur, you bring the falling into the mind. And then you hold it in the mind, you follow it continuously from beginning to the end. Okay? So in this way, okay, with each rising, each falling that arises, each moment, you keep bringing into the mind. Okay? Rising occur, you bring it into the mind. Falling occur, you bring it into the mind. Another rising occur, I bring it into the mind. You keep bringing each rising, each falling into the mind, each time they arise. Okay? So similarly in the walking meditation, lifting, as soon as lifting occur, you bring it into the mind. Pushing occur, you bring it into the mind. Placing occur, you bring it into the mind. The daily activities are stretching, bring it into the mind. Bending, bring it into the mind. Seeing, bring the experience of seeing into the mind. That's mindfulness. So when you make the effort deliberately bring the object clearly into the mind. So it's not just a superficial awareness where you simply observe the object on the surface. Okay? But you bring it into the mind so that you can have a better look at the object. So it's a very careful awareness of the object, not a superficial awareness. So mindfulness in the practice of Satipatthana is this clear awareness that brings or draws these experiences, the 6 sense experiences clearly in the mind as each of these experiences are occurring in the present. So it draws it into the mind, brings it into the mind. Hold it there, not letting the object out of sight, not letting the attention escape or drift away to something else, like daydreaming, imagining, thinking of the past, worrying about the future, and so on. Okay? You bring the object in the mind, you hold the object in the mind. And so the mind is just with that object and nothing else. It doesn't drift away from the object. Okay? It doesn't abandon the object. Yeah. So we say that the meaning of sati is connected with remembering. Okay? No. To remember means not to forget. Right? So therefore, sati or mindfulness can also be described as the non-forgetful awareness. Okay? So mindfulness, when it's present, it never forgets the object. So when mindfulness is well developed, this nature of non-forgetfulness is strong. Okay? So when nature of non-forgetfulness is strong, the mind is able to follow each object continuous from beginning to the end with complete wholehearted attention, which never forget the object, never forsake the object. Okay? So, for example, when rising occurs immediately, mindfulness brings the rising into the mind. Okay? And it remembers the rising from beginning to the end without forgetting it, without being distracted halfway. Okay? So the mind notes it continuously from beginning to the end. Okay? If mindfulness is not strong or is not present, you cannot follow to beginning to the end. You follow rising, halfway. You think, what did I have just now for lunch? The mind got distracted away. Okay? Very easily. The mind abandons the object halfway. Okay? But when mindfulness is strong, you never forget. So you can follow from beginning to the end, without forgetting, without being distracted. Okay? So the whole mind is with that rising from beginning to the end. Okay? It's like the whole mind is just fixed on the rising. Okay? So so not only does strong mindfulness not forget or abandon the object halfway. Okay? So when mindfulness is well developed, when this nature of non-forgetfulness is strong, mindfulness occurs continuously, without a break. Okay? Nature of non-forgetfulness does not allow the noting mind to miss a single object, to miss a single noting. Okay? So noting will go on continuously without a break, moment to moment to moment, noting one object after another. Okay? Then note the rising, falling, rising, falling. Continuously we are note. Okay? So pain arise and note pain disappear, go back, rising, falling. Okay? So it does not miss a single noting because it doesn't forget to note. Okay? So every moment it remembers to note. Okay? And every moment mindfulness draws the presently occurring object into the mind. Okay? And so that it can be noted clearly. Okay? It doesn't forget to do this. Okay? Now, mindfulness is also pure awareness, or wholesome awareness. Okay? So that means it is awareness that is undefiled or untainted by the mental defilements. Okay? So you see, awareness can be both wholesome as well as unwholesome. Okay? It can be both pure and impure. Okay? So that's why we say awareness, not just any type of awareness. Okay? Mindfulness is not just any type of awareness. Okay? Non-forgetful awareness is also a pure awareness, wholesome awareness. Okay? So if you are aware of something but with defilements, then that is not mindfulness. Okay? But when you go to the dining kitchen there and then you see, oh, my favorite food today. You're aware. But that awareness is greed. That is not mindfulness. So, you're pain. You're noting the pain. But as you note, you find the mind become more and more agitated, more and more disturbed. A lot of dosa. That awareness, you're aware of the pain, but that awareness is tainted by dosa. That is not mindfulness. Mindfulness is pure awareness, free from all defilements. Okay? So because it's freed from these defilements, so it is also freed from all the disturbances that arise due to the defilements, like likes and dislikes. That's when these defilements arise, likes and dislikes, are the five hindrances: sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and wavering doubt. So when these defilements arise, they cause disturbances in the mind. Okay? So the mind, when mindfulness is present, because it's a pure awareness, it is freed from these defilements. So it's freed from likes and dislikes. It's freed from obsession due to greed with regards to the object. So you have greed, desire, attachment. You become obsessed with the object. This disturbs the mind. Okay? It's also freed from dejection with regards to the object that arises due to dosa. Okay? So when you have dosa, the mind is agitated. You don't like the object, so become dejected, depressed by the object. Okay? So the mind is free from such obsession or dejection with regards to the object. So because of this, it is able to view the object with steady equanimity and detachment. So mindfulness, see, when it arises, it doesn't arise alone. It has a lot of friends, very good friends. So it comes with equanimity. Okay? It comes with detachment. Okay? So many more. Okay? So with this pure awareness present, a mind freed from likes and dislikes is able to view the object with steady equanimity and detachment. And as a result of this, the mind is able to discern the nature of the object clearly as it is. There's clarity of mind. Okay? So, and it is this type of awareness, this type of pure awareness that we need to develop. Okay? Before we can develop insight into impermanent suffering and non-self. Okay? Because in order to develop insight, You must be able to discern the object clearly, exactly as it is. Okay? So to do so, there must be this equanimity, detachment from the object. Okay? That means the mind is not biased in any way towards the object, whether through likes or dislikes. So it's able to see clearly, exactly as it is. Okay? So the awareness, we must develop this pure awareness in order to develop clear insight. Now, because mindfulness is this wholesome, pure awareness, so when mindfulness is present, the mind is undisturbed by the defilements. Okay? And so it becomes peaceful. Okay? It's not agitated, not disturbed. It's peaceful, it's calm, it's composed. The mind is not excited. It is cool, it is relaxed. So this calm, peaceful composure of the mind is an indication of the presence of mindfulness. You can check for yourself. If you are noting mind has this quality. Every time when you note an object, each moment you're not rising or falling or whatever object you are noting, you can check whether that noting mind in that moment has this quality of calmness, peacefulness, composure. So, or is the noting mind disturbed and agitated? Restless. So, it is disturbed, it's agitated, that means there's no mindfulness present. Because there are defilements. The mind is disturbed, that means there are defilements present in the mind. You may not realize it, but that is a sign that there are some defilements present. Okay? Hindrances present, obstructing the mind. Okay? So you can check for yourself. So for example, when noting pain, so when you note pain, is the mind calm, peaceful, composed? If it's calm, peaceful, composed, that means you are noting it with some degree of mindfulness present. Okay? But if you find that when you're noting the pain, your mind is disturbed, is agitated, that means it's not mindfulness. Okay? It means the whole mind is not equanimous, it's unsteady, okay? It's shaking. Okay? When there's mindfulness present, the mind is very steady. There's this strength. And mindfulness is the strength of mind. Okay? One of the 5 strengths of mind. Okay? Panchabala. So mindfulness is satipala. Okay? The strength or the power of mindfulness. Okay? It holds the mind steady. You establish the mind strongly on the object, so the mind becomes steady. So you can check for yourself. Okay? Every time you're noting. So this calmness, peacefulness, this is a quality of that comes together with mindfulness. Okay? Actually, these are qualities of the wholesome mind. Okay? So mindfulness is a wholesome state of mind. Okay? So, and a wholesome state of mind, it always comes with mindfulness. Okay? So when the mind is wholesome, there's always mindfulness present. Okay? That is an indication of whether the mind is wholesome or unwholesome. Okay? So, and with mindfulness, it comes, as we said just now, not alone. It comes with a host of wholesome mental states. Equanimity, detachment, peacefulness, tranquility. Another quality that comes with mindfulness or a wholesome one is this quality of softness, adaptability, flexibility of mind. Okay? So when mindfulness is present, okay, the mind is soft, it's adaptable, it's flexible. Okay? The mind is not hard and rigid, inflexible. Okay? So the mind is able to adapt to each object that arises in each moment. Okay? So the rising occur, the noting mind can adapt to noting rising. When falling occur, it can adapt to noting falling. Okay? Pain occur, it can adapt to noting pain. Noise occur, you can adapt to noting noise. Okay? Softness occur, you can adapt to noting softness. Okay? Hardness occur, you can adapt to noting hardness. Okay? So, object is gross, we can adapt to noting gross object. Okay? When the object becomes subtle, it can also adapt to noting subtle object. Mind has this flexibility. So often yogis cannot adapt to object, especially to difficult object. Okay? So when the object is pleasant and nice, you can no problem. I enjoy meditation very much. But if pain arises, ayo, why so difficult meditation? So then you get angry, become agitated, the mind loses the composure. That means the mindfulness disappears. So this quality of softness, adaptability, flexibility is very important in our practice. Okay? Because as we practice in a retreat like this especially, where we are meditating continuously throughout the day, from morning till night. Okay? So throughout the day, all the many external and internal conditions are changing. Okay? They keep changing from moment to moment. Okay? The morning it may be cold, but come afternoon become very, very hot. Then come evening again, starts to cool down again. Changing condition. Okay? So in the morning, especially before breakfast, you may feel hungry. After you had your breakfast, then you feel very comfortable. Or if you eat too much, it becomes very heavy, bloated, uncomfortable. So, changing condition. Okay? Energy also. Energy of the mind. Some parts of the day are the mind so energetic. Other part of the day the mind suddenly become tired. No energy. Okay? So objects also changes. Sometimes very gross, sometimes become more and more subtle until very difficult to discern. Sometimes object is pleasant, but often in vipassana object is unpleasant. So, if your mindfulness is well developed, noting mind able to adapt to any situation, any condition that arise easily. Even if the change happen very suddenly, you are able to adapt. So, and this is actually helpful not just in meditation practice, in your life outside of a retreat also. Because as you all know, you live your life, anything can happen at any time, right? 8 worldly conditions, they said, go up and down, up and down. And it can happen very fast. Your fortune can turn just like this. So suddenly, so if your mind is not flexible, you cannot adapt, then you suffer a lot. But if you have developed strong mindfulness, strong habit of mindfulness, things happen suddenly. Mindfulness can kick in and hold your mind steady, and you can adapt to it very fast. So this is another quality that comes with mindfulness. The softness, adaptability, flexibility of the mind. Due to the purity of mindfulness, it is also detached from the object. That means the mind does not get involved with the object, either by obsessively grasping at the object with desire or attachment, or aggressively rejecting, pushing the object away due to aversion. So, so the mind is able to be detached from the object, simply allow the object to be as it is, without trying to change it in any way. So simply allow the object to be as it is, and simply step aside and observe the object carefully. So it becomes like what we said this morning, the passive observer. So this is another quality that comes in mindfulness. This detachment, non-involvement with the object. Simply observe it as it is, with steady mindfulness, equanimity. So, whether the object is pleasant or unpleasant, it's detached from it. So mindfulness, sati, is this pure awareness. Pure awareness that's clear, peaceful, calm, relaxed, soft, adaptable, detached, equanimous. And it's all this quality. So whenever you note, each time you note, you can check for yourself. Whether the noting mind has these qualities, these wholesome qualities of mind. Is it soft? Is it peaceful? Is it clear? Is it detached? So each time you note, make sure awareness is clear, okay? And the mind is peaceful, calm, relaxed, is soft, flexible, detached. Okay? So if the noting mind is in this condition, then you can be sure that some degree of mindfulness is present. So in the beginning it may not be so strong, but if this quality are present, some degree of mindfulness is present. That is a matter of continuity, continuous noting, developing this quality, and they become stronger and stronger and stronger. This bhavana. So first you make effort to connect clearly with the object as soon as the object arises. Okay? Bring the object completely into the awareness. Bring it clearly into the awareness. Okay? So, for example, rising occur, immediately bring it clearly into the mind. Falling occur, immediately bring it clearly into the mind. Okay? And hold the object clearly in the mind, aware of it from beginning to the end. Okay? So, entire mind must be on the object. Okay? So, of course, some effort is required to do this, especially in the beginning. So, the beginning, when you meditate, you require a lot of effort to get the noting going. Okay? So, just like when you get into a car, you cannot just get in the car and then just sit there and do nothing. The car will not move on its own. Okay? So you have to make effort, step on the accelerator, get the car going. Right? You have to let it keep stepping on the accelerator until it pick up speed. Enough speed, then you can cruise. Okay? Once you pick up enough speed, then you can just hold it there and then you just cruise along. So similarly in our practice, in the beginning it requires a lot of effort to get this meditation engine going. Noting. Okay? Sometimes you're not halfway, see how then you have to start again. Right? Again, so go. So you wander away again, then you start again. Each time you wander away, you have to start again. You keep making effort. Every time you make effort, you are developing. Okay? So as you develop, it becomes stronger and stronger. You start to pick up momentum. Okay? Pick up speed. Once the momentum has developed enough, meditation will become easier and easier. Okay? So the effort that you put in, once it gain momentum, it will carry the practice. Okay? So it may come to a point in your practice, if you develop sufficiently, you may even feel that meditation is just going on its own. It has its own momentum. Then you really feel that there is meditation without meditator. It just goes by itself. There is non-self. So, very beginning, not so. You need to make a lot of effort. But when you make effort, don't be too pushy, don't force the mind too hard till the mind becomes tense and agitated. Okay? So you make effort to be clearly aware of the object, okay? But in a calm and relaxed way, okay? So the noting mind, remember, must be soft, relaxed, peaceful, okay? So when you make effort, effort must be properly directed. Okay? You don't direct the effort to force the mind, force it into the object. Sometimes yogi note the object like they're hammering the object. That's too forceful. Okay, so don't force the object also to become clear. Sometimes yogi breathe harder so that they can feel the rising falling. Okay? Don't do that. The breathing must, you must allow the breathing to occur naturally. Okay? So you make effort only to feel the object clearly. Okay? So the rising occur, you make effort to bring the awareness to the object. Or as we said, bring it into the mind. Bring it clearly into the mind. Okay? And then you make effort to feel the object clearly. Okay? Explore the object. Okay? So rising occur, you bring it to the rising and then you feel rising. Use the mind, feel. What do you feel? Sensation, tightness, pushing or pressure, whatever appear to the mind in that moment. Take note, feel it, take note. Okay? So you make effort in this way just to feel object, okay? However it is. Okay? Object not clear, don't force it to be clearer. Not clear, you put in the effort to feel it as clearly as you can. Okay? As clearly as you can. Okay? It may not be as clear as you would like it to be. Okay? But as clearly as you can. Okay? When the mindfulness is not sufficiently developed yet, you may try to feel as clearly as you can, but it may not be so clear in the beginning. Doesn't matter. Okay? As long as as clear as it can be, it's fine. Keep noting. Okay? Don't try to force the object in any way. Don't try to force the mind in any way. You cannot force the clarity to appear. Okay? Clarity arises when you have developed sufficient mindfulness and concentration. Okay? Then clarity will arise. Okay? Yeah. So make effort. The mind must be soft, relaxed, peaceful. Okay? And then you add the energy into that. Okay? So the energy is also a soft, relaxed energy. Okay? It's directed simply to be aware, to explore, feel the object, moment to moment, as clearly as you can. So there is this balancing, act of balancing the mind, okay? Which requires some skill. Okay? On the one hand, the mind must be soft, relaxed, peaceful. On the other hand, there must be this energetic effort to bring the awareness to the object, to explore, to feel clearly the nature of the object. Okay, so these two must be balanced. The calm aspect, the noting mind, as well as the energetic aspect of the noting mind must be balanced. Okay? And balancing is a skill that every yogi must develop over time in your practice. You will learn to balance the mind. Okay? So, of course, to balance, you need to be aware when the mind is imbalanced. Okay? Only if you realize the mind is imbalanced, too much energy or not enough energy, too much concentration, not enough concentration. When you realize this, then only you will take steps to adjust the imbalance. Okay? So to realize it, you must be aware. There must be mindfulness. So, okay, now to have a clearer understanding of the nature of mindfulness, so it will be helpful to study the description of mindfulness given in the commentary, in terms of its characteristics, its function, its manifestation, and its proximate cause. Now, so the characteristic of mindfulness, so characteristic means its nature, okay? Its unique nature. So this characteristic of mindfulness is described as apilapana lakkhana. So lakkhana means characteristic or nature. So apilapana lakkhana. So apilapana means not floating or not drifting away. Okay? So the nature of mindfulness is not floating or not drifting away. So what does this mean? So to understand this, you think of the opposite of not floating. So that means to float. So like if you throw a ball onto a pool of water, so what happened to the ball? It will just float about on the surface of the water, right? So it just float about there. So it's not securely anchored to anything. So it's not well established anywhere. It's just floating about there. So it can be easily swept away by a wave or blown away by the wind. Okay, so similarly, a mind that is without mindfulness, it also floats like this. It floats about superficially, okay, on the surface of the object. Okay, so it's not securely anchored to the object, not firmly established on the object. Okay, so when it's not firmly established on the object, it's not stable. So it can be easily toppled from the object. Deformance can easily overcome and sweep it away from the object. Okay? So not being securely anchored or firmly established on the object, the mind will soon drift away from the object and forget the object. Okay? So the nature of mindfulness is the opposite. It's not floating, not drifting away. So not floating means it sinks. So just like you throw, instead of a ball, you throw a piece of rock into the pool. What happened? The rock, because it's heavy, immediately it will sink right to the bottom of the pool. Okay? And it will remain firmly established there, at the bottom of the pool. Okay? So that no wind, no wave can dislodge it from where it is. Okay? So similarly, mindfulness, when it's present, it causes the mind to sink into the object completely. So this means the mind will be securely anchored onto the object. It's firmly established on the object. So it cannot be easily swept away or dislodged from the object. So it does not drift away or forget about the object. So the characteristic of non-floating, apilapana, really means establishing firmly. Okay? So mindfulness, firmly, its nature is to firmly establish the mind on the object, so that the mind does not forget the object. Okay? That is the nature of mindfulness. Okay? So every time you note the object with mindfulness, now you find noting mind is firmly established on the object. Okay? Not superficially just floating on the surface. It goes into the object. Okay? So anchored on the object. Now apilapana lakkhana, this characteristic of non-floating, can also be understood as non-superficiality. Okay? So this is actually an explanation from Sayadaw U Pandita. Okay? So he explained that the characteristic of mindfulness as non-superficiality. Okay? So it's not a superficial awareness. Okay? So that mindfulness does not observe the object superficially on the surface. Okay? Rather, it observes the object deeply, as if it's sinking, immersing into the object completely. Okay? So it experiences and explores the object thoroughly. Okay? So when mindfulness is present, it fully immerses into the experience of the object. Okay? So it experiences the object deeply. Okay? So it's the non-superficial, deep non-superficial awareness. Okay? It takes a deep and thorough look at the object. Okay? Experience it thoroughly, clearly. Okay? So mindfulness is not an ordinary awareness. Okay? It's deep awareness of the object. Next, I talk about the function of mindfulness. Okay? So that means, what does mindfulness do? Okay? When it arises in the mind, it does something. What does it do? Okay? So the function of mindfulness explained as asamosa rasa. Okay? That means mindfulness has the function of non-forgetfulness. Okay? Yeah. So mindfulness, when it's present, it carries out this function, non-forgetfulness. That means it does not allow the mind to forget the object. Okay? So because of its characteristic, establishing firmly on the object, so it always keep the object firmly in mind. Okay? It never drift away from the object, never abandon the object. Okay? So therefore it causes the mind not to forget the object. Okay? So keep with the object always. Okay? So it's like good parents. When you take the children outside, good parents will always keep a close watch over the children, never let them out of sight. Otherwise, people may come and kidnap. So mindfulness is like this. We always keep watch, close watch over the object, never forgetting the object. Always keep it in sight. Never let the object out of sight. And so when it's present, the attention is kept firmly and squarely on the object. So it never forgets the object. So this function of mindfulness, non-forgetfulness, allows the mind to remain fixed on the object of attention and not become distracted. So the mind becomes fixed on the object. Okay? Not distracted away. Which is why when mindfulness is well developed, okay, samadhi, concentration also develops. Okay? Continuous mindfulness helps to develop samadhi. Okay? Because continuously it remembers to hold the mind on the object. Moment to moment, you just hold the mind, establish on the object, establish every single moment. Then you never forget it. Okay? So this, over time, this leads to the mind becoming fixed on the object. So samadhi develops as a result. Okay? So remember, samadhi, concentration comes from mindfulness, from continuous mindful noting. Okay? It does not come about by forcing the mind to focus. No matter how much you force, you cannot force samadhi to arise. Okay? You must set the condition for it to arise through continuous mindful noting. Okay? So when mindfulness has been developed sufficiently, samadhi will arise on its own. Okay? So you cannot force samadhi to arise. Okay? So you as yogi, you only have one work, to note, mindful noting every moment. Okay? Don't have to worry about samadhi, don't have to worry about jnanas, clear knowledge. You just do this one work. Okay? Nothing. Continuously, moment to moment, clearly, precisely. You do this continuously, when it's developed sufficiently, everything will fall into place. Okay? Now, so due to this awareness, having this quality of non-forgetfulness, carrying out this function of non-forgetfulness. Okay? So you find that the noting mind can observe each object from beginning to the end, okay? Without being distracted from the object to something else. Okay? Now it also means that you always remember to note. Okay? You never miss a single noting. Okay? Because mindfulness will not allow the mind to forget. So you always note every single moment, every single object that arises. It never miss a noting. Okay? And mindfulness is still weak. And you find that so the function of non-forgetfulness will also be weak. Okay, so you find the mind always forget to note. Okay, so it miss many notings here and there. Okay, there will be huge gaps in the noting. Sometimes the mind can wander for half an hour before it remembers. So when mindfulness is still weak, it cannot carry out this function of non-forgetfulness properly. Okay? So when this is the case, then you have to help the mindfulness to remember. Okay? How? By labeling. Okay? As I explained this morning. So by labeling, you point the mind, remind it, note this object, then you remember. Okay? So yeah, help you to continuously note. Okay? But once the mindfulness is well developed, becomes strong, and then the function of non-forgetfulness also becomes strong. Then nothing will go on by itself. You will not forget. Okay? Then you don't need the label anymore. Okay? So, and often once mindfulness is well developed, often it's better to just drop the labeling. In fact, often the label just drop off by itself. Okay? Because you see, the labeling is the label is actually a concept. Okay? To come up with the label, it requires the mind, an extra thought process in the mind to come up with that concept, that label. Okay? So the mind, with the concept present, the mind, the concept may come in the way of experiencing the nature of the object clearly. Okay? So that's why once the mindfulness is well developed, the noting can go on by itself. Okay? Then it's better to just drop the label. Okay? And experience the object directly. Without any concept, without any label. Okay? But of course, later on, the mindfulness may lose its momentum. Then you find that when the mind starts to wander again, then you bring back the labeling. Okay? So that means the mindfulness is weakening. Then the function of non-forgetfulness is also weakening. It starts to forget. Then you bring back the label. Okay? Now, another way to describe this non-forgetfulness, this complete presence of mind. Okay? So you never forget. That means it's always present. Okay? Every moment the mind is present with the object. Okay? So there's complete presence of mind. Okay? So there's not, so every moment the mind is with the object. Okay? There's not a single moment when the mind is not present with the object. Okay, that next one is manifestation of mindfulness. How does mindfulness manifest? How does it appear? When you observe it, what is the appearance of mindfulness? Okay? That's the manifestation. Okay? And it is described as Visaya Bimukha Bhava, Satipatthana. Okay? So that means mindfulness appears to be face to face with the object. Okay? So whenever you observe mindfulness, you can actually take mindfulness as an object in your practice. Sometimes the mindfulness is so well developed that it's so clearly present. You observe the mindfulness, the nature. You see the mindfulness is always facing the object, okay? Directly. Okay? So and whenever you observe this mindfulness, it's always turned towards the object, turned to face the object. Okay? It's never turned away from the object. Okay? So due to its nature of non-forgetfulness, it never takes its eyes off the object. Okay? Always facing the object. So it keeps looking straight into the object. It's like it's staring at the object. It's like a long, intense stare at the object. Okay? So it's staring, looking, exploring deeper and deeper into the object. Okay? The longer it look at the object, the longer it stare into the object, the deeper it explore into the object, and the more it finds out about the nature of the object. Okay? So this is like the space telescope, this telescope that astronomer use to study the celestial objects. So when there's astronomer, they wish to study some celestial objects, stars or planets or galaxies. So they turn this very powerful telescope towards that object. Okay? And just let the telescope fix the telescope on the object. Let it stare into the object and collect data. Okay? So the longer the telescope stare at the object, the more data they can collect. So they have a deeper understanding about the object. Okay? So there's this famous picture taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. They call it the Hubble Deep Field Image. Right? So when the telescope was first launched into space, they decided to point the telescope at one very tiny spot in space. It's a very tiny spot. You look at the spot with an ordinary telescope, you only see a few stars here and there, and some one or two galaxies maybe. So they think At first, they were skeptical. Then nothing there, why we point there? But one of the leader insisted, you must point it there. So they pointed the telescope there at a very tiny spot and let the telescope stare for 100 hours on just that spot. And so they collect data. So after 100 hours, they process the image. And when they saw the image, they were so surprised. In that tiny spot there, they found about 3,000 galaxies that previously they were not aware of. Just in that one tiny little spot. And that changed the whole understanding about the universe around us. Before that, the astronomer, they know there were galaxies around, but they did not expect that there could be so many galaxies. They thought there were just a few, I don't know, maybe a few thousand. But now they see in that tiny spot alone, there's already 3,000, about 3,000 galaxies. So that made them realize there were much more galaxies in the universe than they previously thought. So that comes by, you keep looking at the same thing again and again, same place, again and again. So similarly, practice and mindfulness is continuously facing face to face with the object. So you continuously stare at it, the object, without taking the attention away. Then your mindfulness is able to explore deeper and deeper, more and more clearly into the object, nature of the object. You start to discover more and more things about the nature of the object. Okay? And in this way you develop deeper and deeper, clearer and clearer understanding, knowledge about the object. Yeah? So sometimes yogi, they note the object. After a while, they say, nothing here to see. Rising, falling, so boring, nothing there. Then they switch object. Then after, maybe they switch sitting, touching. After a while, sitting, touching, nothing there. Go back, rising, falling. After a while, then nothing still. Go to maybe some pain here, I watch the pain. After a while, also nothing. So, if you have this attitude, you will not be able to explore the object deep enough. Okay? So you must hold the attention continuously, no matter how boring, no matter how subtle the object. Make effort, hold the attention, keep looking at it face to face. And the mind develops sufficiently. You start to discover more and more about the object. Okay? There's a lot of things, even just rising, falling. There's a lot to discover about this simple object, rising, falling. And on the surface, you look, it's just up and down. What's so special? You keep looking at it. Okay? It can bring you to liberation. Yes, from suffering. Don't underestimate power of mindfulness to reveal the secrets of the five aggregates. Okay. Another manifestation of mindfulness is araka. Araka pachupattana. That means araka means guarding, protecting. Okay? So mindfulness appears to be guarding the mind, protecting the mind. That means it protects the mind from mental defilements. So when mindfulness is present, and this non-forgetful attention is present, no defilements can intrude into the mind and defile the mind. Okay? So the mind is protected from the defilements with mindfulness. Okay? So it remains pure and undisturbed by defilements. So because of this, the mind can settle down, become calm and composed and clear. Okay? So mindfulness, it protects the mind. Okay? It keeps the defilements away. So this is actually very important for meditation. Okay? Any type of meditation, not just vipassana meditation. So, because mindfulness offers this protection to the mind. Okay? When we meditate, we need to protect the mind from the defilements. Okay? Because in meditation, we are striving to develop powerful state of concentration. Okay? So to do so, we must ensure that the mind is pure, free from defilements. Otherwise, if defilements present in the mind, you try to focus, concentrate the mind, the defilements become focused. Okay? They become intensified, become strong. Okay? And this can cause problem. So for example, you're not paying with mindfulness, no problem. The mind remains detached, soft, relaxed, peaceful. You're able to view the pain with equanimity, unshaken. But if you note the pain without mindfulness, mind starts to become agitated. So the more you note, the more agitated you become. The dosa becomes stronger and stronger, intensify. Okay? You may reach a point where anger is so strong. It may cause psychological problem. You may become traumatized by pain. Then you don't dare to meditate anymore. So always begin your meditation, whatever meditation you do, whether vipassana or samatha, always begin with mindfulness. Okay? So as you note moment to moment, make sure mindfulness is present. Okay? To keep the defilements away. So that when the mind becomes concentrated, it's the mindfulness that is concentrated. Okay? Okay. Finally, we have proximate cause of mindfulness. That means the condition, the principal condition that causes mindfulness to arise, that also supports it. Okay? And this is explained as tirasanya, tirasanya padatthana. Okay? Tirasanya means firm perception. Okay? So sanya is perception. Okay? Perception means the mental state that recognizes. So when you experience, you have any sense experience, the mind recognizes the object. Okay? So you see something in your everyday life. Okay? This perception works at the conceptual level. Okay? So you see, you can recognize. This is tissue box, this is a cup, this is a tray, this is a tablet, this is a clock. You recognize. That mental state that recognize is sanya, perception. Okay? But in the everyday life, it works at the conceptual level. They recognize a person, a man or a woman, and so on. Okay? But when you practice vipassana meditation, okay? So sanya will work at the level of bare direct experience, okay? And stripped of all concept. That means it recognizes the bare nature, bare mental, physical nature. Okay? So, for example, when you first begin your practice, you note rising, falling, right? In the beginning, when you note, the mind goes to, it picks up. You look at the object, it says, oh, this is my abdomen. My abdomen has this form and shape. My abdomen is going up, going down, and so on. So this is all very conceptual. Okay? So in the beginning, the perception still work at the conceptual level. But as you develop the mindful noting continuously, as the mindfulness concentration develop, your mind starts to discern object more and more clearly. Then mindfulness, the perception begins to pick up bare nature. So like you note rising, falling, instead of seeing the abdomen, the form and shape up and down, you begin to discern the sensation, physical nature, tightness, pushing, pressure, expansion, contraction, and so on. Okay? This bare physical nature. And as you keep noting, as the mind becomes clearer and clearer, you can even pick up, recognize the noting mind or the knowing mind following each object. Okay? So you pick up the bare metaphysical nature. Okay? So in vipassana, it's this sanya that picks up this nature. So when we say noting, actually noting is not just mindfulness. Mindfulness establishes the mind on the object. Sanya, it recognizes. It recognizes, this hardness, this softness, this tightness, this knowing, this is noting. So noting involves sanya. Perception. Okay? So it recognizes clearly. Okay? But in order for sanya to work properly, to pick up the nature of the object clearly, okay? You need to observe carefully. So therefore, then it gives rise to this mindfulness. This careful observation. So the act of taking note give rise to this careful attention, which is mindfulness. Okay? So therefore, proximate cause of mindfulness is this firm perception, in trying to firmly perceive the object. It gives rise to this careful attention. So the more careful you have to observe the object, the stronger will be the mindfulness. Okay, so we stop here tonight.